What's up, y'all? One Piece One Life here, and guys, this is probably gonna be the last video that you see me in this space. See, that's because at the time of this recording, I am actively moving out of this room. In fact, by the time that I post this video, I would have already been moved out. And I am gonna miss this room because my channel grew a lot within the past, 3.5-ish months, but we're not done yet. Now, I've done a lot of chapter reviews in here, and I feel like it would be almost disingenuous if I didn't try and squeeze out this one last chapter review batch. And it's fitting because this is probably the most hype batch that I've had yet. We're gonna talk about all that and more right now because this is gonna be One Piece chapter review 1112 to 1114. But before we start, guys, please, y'all know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this, and share it around with all your friends who love this series. Let's get it going. Now, one thing I gotta say before we start, guys, y'all are gonna be tired of hearing me say, oh, I was right about this. Yo, I'm right again. And sorry, but that's just what happens when you accurately predict the greatest manga in the world. So starting with the cover story, we see that Yamato is meeting with Kin, who gives her a parting gift in exchange for doing some sort of favor for him, which we're only going to find out in the next installment. Now on Egghead, the battlefield is in complete chaos, but all 50 of the Mark III pacifistas are down, which I just have to say, but from Nezjuro, that is an incredible speed feat, because that took, 5 minutes tops? So as Nezjuro is running towards Bonnie's group, we see that Frankie and Bonnie are casually one-shotting Vice Admirals. I'm gonna say that again for the people in the back. Casually one-shotting Vice Admirals. We got Frankie taking out Red King with one solid strike from his strong right. And then Bonnie turns Pomsky into a literal child and kicks him in the face. And see, this is what I'm talking about. I've made a short about this, but people need to start taking the Straw Hats seriously. We can't be playing on their name no more like they're just, it's only Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei who do stuff. The whole crew is strong, the whole crew is useful, and we're gonna see that in this batch. Is there power creep? Who knows? That's not what we're here to answer today. Maybe that's another video. So meanwhile, Vegapunk's message is still happening, and York takes Mars to the place where the pre-recorded message was actually, shot at. Mars doesn't see anything, so he just starts blowing shit up. So I guess he's hoping to cut the signal by, just destroying the place. But York says, yo, wait, hold on, don't do that, because I don't want no problems. Because of course, a huge explosion can come from all of this equipment. But then we get something very interesting that York says. Now York says we don't want to rack up any more sins. What the hell does that mean? Well, I already made a theory video about this topic, which you can watch here. But I essentially started thinking that this must mean that Vegapunk's true self is in some way infused in Punk Records, and that the larger system of Punk Records is the true body, or the master, and all of the flesh bodies, all the satellites, but including the Stella body himself, are the servants. Spoilers ahead, I was right. Mars then says that he senses a voice up above, something like that, and it turns out to be one of the new Denden Mushis that are specifically made for broadcasting. But real quick, guys, I have a real quick question about voices in One Piece. So whenever they say voice and they put it in quotation marks, is that supposed to be telling us that the voice of all things is being used here? But I don't know why that would be the case, because a lot of characters that seemingly don't have the voice of all things have said voice with the quotation marks around it, a la, Law and Kid in Onigashima. So I'm trying to think, where's the distinction being made if basic observation hockey can do the same thing? Meanwhile, we finally see Stussy and Kaku again. Stussy's back up after getting finger pierced by Lucci. Nope, still sounds so wrong to say out loud. And as they talk, it turns out Stussy's planning on sacrificing herself too, which is honestly making me realize that we're in the final saga, because you start deeping it and you realize that all of our allies are just dropping like flies. Oda isn't holding back the death card no more. Now, most of the Straw Hats have regrouped in the Labo Stratum and, are trying to escape, except they need to talk with Edison to figure out how exactly they're gonna do that. Considering the Vega Force 1, which was their initial plan, is now destroyed. It was destroyed by Kizaru. So Edison says that he has an idea, and then he just voluntarily jumps through the laser grid and takes massive amounts of damage. That really just shocked me, because I was like, what's happening? Why Why was that necessary? Side note, seeing Usopp take charge of, the crew and everything, and then just, his general demeanor shift and change were redundant in that sentence. But regardless, it was really great to see, the start of his transformation and the fact that Oda isn't forgetting that this is a plot point that he has. Now you have Luffy and the Giants, and they're still running away from Workery and Peter. Peter, as the sandworm, is doing what can only be described as a super suck to try and, inhale everything on the island, and I guess presumably them too, and just eat them. But Luffy literally just kicks a building into his mouth. Luffy then goes for a red rock attack on Workery, but it doesn't work, and it turns out Workery has disgustingly durable skin, such that it hurts Luffy himself. Mind you, Red Rock is the same attack that floored Kaido pre-Gear 5, pre-Conqueror's Coding. And I say this just to say that it's clear to me that Oda is trying to portray the Gorosei as at least more of a threat than the Yonko. Stronger, And then the chapter ends with cuts of seeing what each of the other Gorosei are doing after they split up. You have Saturn creeping his way up to the Labostratum. You got Nesjuro pulling up saucy as hell, silhouetted with blood dripping from his blade, and he's staring down Frankie and Bonnie's group. And then you got Mars finding the secret place with the Denden Mushi there, but then he's looking up because he notices something. And in the next chapter, Mars looks up and he's shocked to see Punk Records itself. Just a massive, literal brain in a vat. Mars himself asks Vegapunk, "Is this your true form?" 2 days after I posted the video about it being his true form. Backing up real quick, I really do want to shout out the color spread where it's Robin playing chess and the other members are different kind of chess pieces. I like concepts like that where it's just really unique, not just, oh, we're in this situation, are on this random island, and dress differently. But back to what we're talking about. With the message really about to start up, we do what I love about One Piece the most. Cutting around and seeing global reactions from characters we've met all across the journey. On Syrup Village, Kaya is talking to the Veggie Pirates about how important Vegapunk is to the field of medicine as well. And the way that, medicine is kind of boldened there, it makes me think that it has some sort of role to play, some sort of importance. We see Laboon and Crocus, and I want to know Crocus's reaction specifically because based on what Vegapunk says and Crocus's reaction, we can kind of glean to see how much the Roger Pirates learned when they got to Latte. You get cuts of people in Vegapunk's homeland of Karakuri Island, where they're talking about Frankie and the Nightmare of Baltimore. You got those birds and really smart cavemen from the Torino Kingdom where Chopper was sent. And then you even have some people talking about it on Hachinosu, which is interesting because, last we saw, they were in chaos with Garp and all of their people there. But I guess it does make sense now that Garp is captured and that the Marines have fled, things have settled down. Looking ahead next chapter, we even see Aokiji paying attention. Now back on Egghead, the message continues to play even after Mars breaks the Denden Mushi attachment thing, which essentially means Vegapunk tricked him, it was just a decoy. Then the Gorosei are talking telepathically, asking the others yo, what's happening? What can we do? I don't know, I'm freaking out. And Mars says he's trying to tell the will of Ohara, which essentially means that we have to be getting 4th century stuff, right? It's time. And then we get something that really filled my heart with joy, guys. As Sanji arrives on the scene to where Frankie and Bonnie's group is, he immediately uppercut kicks Nesjuro, which again, I was right about because in a short I said, with Nesjuro heading towards Frankie's group and Sanji doing the same, that's where one of the battles is gonna be. All I know is Sanji stocks are skyrocketing by the moment. And then they continue to skyrocket astronomically because Nesjuro turns into his full Bakotsu form and chomps down on Sanji. And we'll see that, he's durable. He's durable as hell, which we'd have to assume just goes back to the exoskeleton, right? But regardless, that's a feat. Then you have some Oimo and Kashi shenanigans. They're holding him down, allowing Bonnie to use Distorted Future to become a giant herself and prepares to step on him. Doing things out of order real quick, we see that Saturn meeting up with the other Straw Hats at the Labostratum. His entire goal is to get at Robin, but you love to see that the other Straw Hats there step in to save her. You got Nami using Zeus at the climb attack to, block one of the Saturn's legs. Chopper is in his guard point form to block. You got Brook there with So Solid doing some slashes. Usopp's doing what he can with his shots. Like, everyone's pitching in, and it's so heartwarming to see that they really care for Robin. But also, you just love to see, like, you know, the weaker, quote unquote, less important Straw Hats doing something this arc. And hey, this is what I'll say. If Saturn is genuinely struggling with the Weakling Trio and Brook, get this bum out of my face and give me the Gods Knights. So now Vegapunk is essentially starting the message, and I'm not gonna, you know, say everything that he says. You get the general scientist vibe of, oh, I was trying to study science, and in my pursuit of science, this happened and that happened. But he does confirm that he is revealed to be canonically dead, because the message can only play after his heart ceases. So seeing people's reaction to this was pretty interesting, because you have Caesar there, and Caesar's like, you damn fool, you have to be lying, because the whole point of us was to surpass you, which is facts, because if you remember Caesar's cover story, that's what they were trying to do, him and Judge. And I know Big News Morgan's mad as hell because somebody else is taking the big news spotlight away from him. But all of this, the chapter culminates in the news that the One Piece world is sinking into the ocean. Guys, and I can't lie, the first time I heard this, I don't think I had the words to begin to describe how confused I was. I literally had to sit up from my seat to try and process. Like, I did not see this coming at all. Now, getting to 11:14, starting with the cover story, we see that Kinemon is asking Yamato to bring a sword to a shrine in the Hakumai region, which is something that Old Man Yasu was supposed to do, but then, of course, you know, he died. So Yamato says, great, okay, cool. Let's move on to the chapter, because that's more important. Everyone is rightfully shocked, confused, bamboozled. One might say perplexed. We cut around the world to see more reactions, and I'm interested in Akainu's because he's just looking like, maybe time to defect. In Mocktown, of course, they never take anything seriously, so they're just laughing it off. But that is really well contrasted with Water 7, where the four men are talking about, well, if you were talking about only Water 7, I'd believe you in an instant, but the whole world? You know, Polly, Tilestone, and the other guy I'm forgetting. If anyone were to be experts on, you know, rising tides, it would be the place with the literal rising tides annually. And then in Impel Down, we get the return of the GOAT, Don Quixote do Flamingo. He's just there laughing maniacally in prison, telling Magellan that, yo, you know it's gonna be a problem if they flood this place. But then he ends with something very interesting, where he says something along the lines of, well, you know, we could always go high up. It made me thinking that the world government, or at least the world nobles, to some extent knew that this was happening, and that's why they chose the red line. They wanted to be high up to evade the rising tides. The top of the red line is as far as a regular person can go anyway. Or now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's not just that, oh, they knew. That was their plan. They know that they're the ones who are going to cause it, so before they start, they need to save themselves. Which would make sense, because Imu is literally the one who owns the Eternal Flame powered machine. So we see a bit more reactions from the Ryugu royal family before cutting back to Egghead. And the girls say are panicking so much that they say, you know what, forget all this, screw it. Kill everything on sight, anything, kill switch, let's go, take out anything that isn't us. So in his message, Vegapunk continues, and he says that according to the data that he's been collecting, an earthquake should be happening fairly soon. So he was referencing today, or I guess whatever the current date is, that day's earthquake, which means that obviously he's referring to what happened with Lucia, and he recorded the message on the same day as Lucia's vanishing. We cut around some more. Like I said, Aokiji's in there. We even see that dude with the stilts, what's his name, Tanjit, I think, the guy from the stilts, Long Ring Long Land. But everybody gotta stop, because the most important thing we need to talk about right now is the appearance of Smoothie and Montor. They don't say nothing that we don't already know. But that doesn't matter, because we're talking about their very presence. And the reason their presence here is massive is because, if you remember, they were on the ship that were going to assist Big Mom at the start of Wano. Y'all don't remember that when a bunch of people came with Big Mom on the Queen Mama Chancer, and then they kept going up the waterfall and getting knocked back down? That was the whole running gag. So what does this mean for the Big Mom Pirates? Are they still operational? Are they still in or around Wano country? Most importantly, have they saved / secured Big Mom And tied into that, does that mean that Big Mom's coming back into the story? I mean, they don't seem to be grieving or nothing, which means that either they haven't found her or she's, fairly fine. So then moving on in the chapter a bit and just slightly going out of order, we see that essentially the escape plan has changed. So they see that the island clouds are starting to stretch, and the plan is to stretch it all the way until it's right on top of the water, and then just like slide the ship down so that they can just get into the ocean that way and dart out. Something that's only made possible by the fact that Edison was the one who went down to, the Febrile phase and did something to initiate that. And as we see Edison here, I would like to say again that I was once again correct. Because in my theory video, I stated that each of the Vegapunks are going to sacrifice themselves in a different way so that Bonnie and the Straw Hats can escape. And literally what Edison says makes it very hard to think that he's planning on escaping himself. Now we finally see it. Vegapunk flew too close to the sun, and we see what the mother flame is, and I mean, it's a literal flame, guys. It's a literal flame. The message continues to be played as we continue cutting around. We see that the Iron G, he's literally unaffected. He's just going through there, shooting cannon shots at him. Nothing's damaging him. Luffy's group is still running away from Mercury, and Luffy tries to attack again, but once again, just like in the last chapter, completely hurts his hand. Mercury is completely fine. And then, guys, it's time. Vegapunk says that this story takes place between 900 and 800 years ago, literally the Void Century. And as he says that, we see Saul laughing and chilling on Elbaf, which I'm so happy of just because we get the best laugh in One Piece back. So Vegapunk continues by saying that, I got my work from the O'Haran scholars and I'm trying to read into it, just yada yada, things that we already knew that he was trying to do. But then he gets to the big reveals. The first of which was softly kind of like, just everyone knew it, but it was firmly confirmed here that Joy Boy, whoever Joy Boy was in the past, did in fact have the Sun God Nika fruit. Also, I take another dub here because in my Joy Boy's a Giant video, I had said that the reason is because Nika originates from Elbaf in some way, and here they're literally saying from the fables of Elbaf. Like it's just one-to-one with what I'm saying. So I think I'm like 98% right at this point. Then the biggest reveal comes at the very end, which is where we hear that Joy Boy was the very first person to ever bear the name of pirate. And whew, guys, did we get a lot of things this chapter. I mean, for one, the fact that Joy Boy was the first person to ever be called pirate, even though there's history before Joy Boy, that seems to suggest that the world can't have been set up the way that it's set up now. So maybe it was a supercontinent like Pangea. Maybe it was One Piece. But to me, the craziest thing from this batch is still gotta be the whole sinking thing. But then the more you think about it, the more it makes sense, where there was a lot of story hints to allow us to lead to the conclusion. Just now that we have the final answer, the pieces make sense. You have Aqua Laguna, like I mentioned. You have Fishman Island kind of serving as a microcosm of what the larger world would be in this instance. More recently, obviously, you have the Mother Flame and the earthquake that Vegapunk was talking about causing it to rise. Add to that the fact that it seems to have happened at least one more time before, if not more times, considering that the hole that was made with the Lucia is very similar to the hole that is currently under Enies Lobby. And then somebody pointed this out to me on the TCB page of the chapter, so shout out to them. But there's even a lot of ways in which specialized groups or races have to avoid the rising of the tides. The people of Wano, right? They built their new Wano on top of old one because, well, the water kept going up. They had to build on top of it. The Minks are on Zunisha's back, so they're cared for. The winged races may have evolved to fly in order to service this need, And on top of that, the fact that the Lunarians are on top of the red line, that could also be why. And then you have the fact that the fishmen and merfolk themselves, they're just adapted to living in the water so that, rising tides don't really affect them. It's definitely a lot to consider, and now we're on break again, but I can definitely say that this has been one of my favorite batches in general. And guys, we're almost here. Void Century it's here. I can smell it. But are you excited to learn about the Void Century? Do you think it's going to be a flashback or, just bits and pieces that Vegapunk tells us? Let me know all that and more in the comments. Well, that's the end of the video, y'all. Now, please, guys, before we leave, y'all know what to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. Remember, I'm trying to make a community, but I need your help to do it. Well, that's gonna be all from me, guys. I'll catch y'all on the next one, and always remember, One Piece, one life, and have a great summer. Just for the sake of it, I'm gonna do Saul's laugh because I love Saul's laugh, and it's my favorite laugh in One Piece.